Hello everyone! What's up? Welcome to the GMB channel. Hope you will enjoy our video. Before we begins, hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Here is the news title. Rachel Reeves warned pensioners, freezing to death, after $300. Winter fuel payment cut. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has axed the $300 winter fuel payment from up to 10 million older people. Pensioners have taken to Sir Keir Starmer's doorstep to demand he rethink the axing of the winter fuel payment on behalf of over 600,000 older people. Veteran John Dockery, 73, joined Arvind Patel, 78, and Age UK Director Caroline Abrahams to deliver their petition to Downing Street demanding action to ensure it can never happen again. John, who was just $5 above Rachel Reeves's winter fuel payment threshold, was forced to rely on the kindness of an express reader to stay warm this winter. Speaking about handing in the petition, he said, "This is something I've always wanted to do, because they took our winter fuel allowance, and I want to show that I'm not happy and neither are a lot of other older people." When asked what his message to the Prime Minister was, Mr. Dockery added, "Rethink what you've done. How would you feel if your mother was freezing to death in her house? It's not fair." The Express previously told how John and his wife, Winifreda, 57, had spent their days huddling with their rescue dogs Miska and Connor to ward off the bitter cold in their one-bedroom bungalow in Tewkesbury, Gloucestershire. It came as millions of pensioners went cold in their own homes last month following Labour's decision to mean-test winter fuel payments, in what campaigners branded a national scandal. Speaking outside No 10, Caroline said, "We're so sad we're having to do this. It shouldn't be necessary. We shouldn't be doing this to the older people in this country. This has been the toughest of winters for older people. Let's not go through it all again next year. Keir Starmer really does need to find a better answer, and there's lots of things he can do to improve life for older people who really struggled this winter. The worst of it is older people telling us they're so worried about getting an unaffordable bill that they just switch the heating off even though they're bitterly cold and it's horrible outside. That's very bad for their health, and we really do worry about what the consequences are for them, and of course for the NHS. It's very hard to tell what happens behind closed doors, but there's absolutely no doubt that this is the last thing older people who are frail and unwell needed, to be cold and worried about running their heating. For some, of course, it will have led them to go into hospital or made existing conditions worse with who knows what consequences. The Daily Express has demanded the Chancellor U-turns on her decision to axe the winter fuel payment for up to 10 million pensioners. A government spokesman said, "We do not want to see anyone suffering this winter, which is why we have continued the warm home discount and extended the household support fund, which will help with the cost of food, heating, and bills. We are committed to supporting pensioners, with millions set to see their state pension rise by up to $1,900 this Parliament through our commitment to the triple lock." And last year, Energy UK, in collaboration with the government, published a Winter 2024 commitment, which promises 500 million of industry support to bill payers this winter. Backlash over pensioners' winter fuel payment cut. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has come under heavy criticism after axing the $300 winter fuel payment for up to 10 million pensioners, a move that has sparked national outrage and widespread concern among older people struggling to keep warm during harsh winters. Campaigners, charities, and affected individuals have called on Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and his government to rethink the decision, warning that it could lead to preventable suffering, even death, among vulnerable elderly citizens. Public outcry and protest. Pensioners have taken to the Prime Minister's doorstep to demand that the government reconsider its stance on the winter fuel allowance. Among those leading the protest was veteran John Dockery, 73, alongside 78-year-old Arvind Patel and Age UK Director Caroline Abrahams. They delivered a petition to Downing Street, representing the voices of over 600,000 older people who have expressed deep distress over the decision. Speaking about the experience, Mr. Dockery shared his frustration. "This is something I've always wanted to do, because they took our winter fuel allowance, and I want to show that I'm not happy, and neither are a lot of other older people. When asked what his message to Prime Minister Keir Starmer would be, he did not hesitate. Rethink what you've done. How would you feel if your mother was freezing to death in her house? It's not fair. John and his wife, Winifreda, 57, live in a small one-bedroom bungalow in Tewkesbury, Gloucestershire. Like many others affected by the cut, they struggled to stay warm during the bitterly cold months. They spent their days huddled together with their rescue dogs, Miska and Connor, in an effort to conserve body heat. Without the financial relief of the winter fuel payment, John was forced to rely on the kindness of an express reader who stepped in to help. A national crisis unfolding. The decision to mean-test winter fuel payments, limiting eligibility to only the lowest-income pensioners, has been branded a national scandal by campaigners. With the cost of living already straining household finances, many elderly citizens found themselves unable to afford heating bills, prompting them to switch off their radiators despite the plummeting temperatures. Caroline Abrahams, representing Age UK, voiced her distress outside Downing Street. "We're so sad we're having to do this. It shouldn't be necessary. We shouldn't be doing this to the older people in this country." She went on to emphasize the harsh realities faced by pensioners who felt they had no choice but to endure freezing conditions for fear of unaffordable energy bills. This has been the toughest of winters for older people. Let's not go through it all again next year. Keir Starmer really does need to find a better answer, and there are lots of things he can do to improve life for older people who really struggled this winter. Health experts have warned that cold exposure can significantly worsen pre-existing medical conditions, increase the risk of respiratory illnesses, and place additional pressure on the NHS. Caroline Abrahams reiterated these concerns, saying, "The worst of it is older people telling us they're so worried about getting an unaffordable bill that they just switch the heating off, even though they're bitterly cold and it's horrible outside. That's very bad for their health, and we really do worry about what the consequences are for them, and of course, for the NHS." Government justification and response. Despite the outcry, the government has defended the policy change, arguing that resources must be allocated based on financial need. A spokesperson stated, "We do not want to see anyone suffering this winter, which is why we have continued the warm home discount and extended the household support fund, which will help with the cost of food, heating, and bills." The government also pointed to their commitment to the state pension triple lock, which guarantees pension increases in line with wage growth, inflation, or 2.5%, whichever is highest. Millions of pensioners are expected to see their state pensions rise by up to $1,900 over the course of this parliament as a result. Additionally, Energy UK, in collaboration with the government, published a winter 2024 commitment, which includes $500 million in industry support to assist bill payers. However, critics argue that these measures do not go far enough to protect those who have lost access to the winter fuel payment. Uncertain future and calls for action. The backlash against the policy shift is growing, with pensioners, advocacy groups, and opposition politicians demanding that the Chancellor reconsider the decision. The Daily Express has spearheaded a campaign urging Rachel Reeves to reverse the cut and ensure that millions of pensioners are not left in the cold next winter. The consequences of this decision will continue to unfold in the coming months. Top judge slaps down Keir Starmer for opposing decision on Palestinian family introduction. A major controversy has erupted in the UK over comments made by Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer regarding a tribunal ruling that allowed a Palestinian family to remain in the UK under a scheme initially designed for Ukrainian refugees. The incident has raised serious questions about judicial independence, the application of human rights laws, and the role of the executive branch in influencing judicial decisions. The intervention of the most senior judge in England and Wales, Lady Chief Justice Baroness Carr, underscores the gravity of the situation and has led to intense political and legal debates. This article provides an in-depth analysis of the issue, breaking down the legal framework, the political dynamics at play, the broader implications for the rule of law in the UK, and the reactions from key stakeholders. The Palestinian family's case. The controversy originated when a Palestinian family applied for asylum in the UK under a scheme that was specifically designed for Ukrainian refugees. The Home Office initially rejected their application, arguing that the scheme was not meant to accommodate non-Ukrainians. However, an upper tribunal ruled in favor of the family, citing Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, ECHR, which protects the right to a family life. This ruling effectively allowed the family to remain in the UK, despite the government's opposition, triggering a strong reaction from the Prime Minister and other political figures. Keir Starmer's opposition to the ruling during Prime Minister's questions, PMQs. Keir Starmer openly criticized the decision of the tribunal, calling it wrong, and suggesting that the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, was working to close the legal loophole that allowed the family to remain in the UK. Starmer's comments sparked immediate backlash, with critics accusing him of undermining judicial independence. The opposition argued that questioning judicial decisions in this manner set a dangerous precedent and could erode public confidence in the legal system. The role of the judiciary and Baroness Carr's intervention. The UK operates under a constitutional framework that upholds the separation of powers, ensuring that the judiciary remains independent from political influence. Judges are expected to interpret and apply the law impartially, without interference from the executive or legislative branches. Lady Chief Justice Baroness Carr, the most senior judge in England and Wales, took the unprecedented step of publicly rebuking the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition. She stated that she was deeply troubled by their remarks and emphasized the importance of respecting judicial independence. Baroness Carr's statement made it clear that disagreements with court rulings should be addressed through the appellate process rather than public criticism. She also reminded MPs of their duty to respect the rule of law, a fundamental principle of democratic governance. Political and legal implications. The fallout from this incident has far-reaching implications for UK politics and the judiciary. Some of the key issues at stake include judicial independence. The judiciary must remain free from political interference to uphold the rule of law. Politicians questioning or challenging judicial decisions publicly can erode confidence in the legal system. Human rights laws in the ECHR. The ruling was based on Article 8 of the ECHR, which protects the right to a family life. This case adds to the ongoing debate about the UK's continued adherence to the ECHR, with some conservative voices calling for a reassessment of its application in British law, refugee and immigration policy. The controversy highlights inconsistencies and loopholes in the UK's immigration policies. There is ongoing political pressure to tighten asylum laws and clarify eligibility for specific schemes. The role of Parliament versus the courts. The incident raises questions about the balance of power between the government and the judiciary. Should MPs have the right to publicly criticize court rulings, or should they restrict their challenges to legal mechanisms? Responses from key figures. The incident has elicited strong responses from various political figures and legal experts. Government response. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, confirmed that her department was reviewing the legal framework to prevent similar cases in the future. Some ministers defended Starmer's comments, arguing that elected representatives have a duty to question judicial rulings that they believe are flawed. Opposition reaction. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch called the tribunal's decision completely wrong and argued that the government must take stronger action to ensure immigration policies are applied consistently. Other opposition figures warned that undermining judicial decisions could set a dangerous precedent and weaken democratic institutions. Legal community's perspective. Many legal experts sided with Baroness Carr, emphasizing that the judiciary must be free from political pressure. Some legal scholars suggested that Starmer's comments reflect a broader trend of political interference in legal matters, which could have long-term consequences. Broader implications for judicial independence. This incident is part of a wider pattern of growing tensions between politicians and the judiciary in the UK. Recent years have seen increased political scrutiny of court decisions, particularly in the areas of immigration, human rights, and Brexit-related rulings. The role of the judiciary in holding the government accountable is a cornerstone of British democracy. However, public disputes between politicians and judges risk undermining the credibility of both institutions. If the trend of questioning judicial decisions continues, it could lead to increased public distrust in the legal system, more frequent attempts to limit the judiciary's powers, a push for legislative changes that could weaken human rights protections. Conclusion: the controversy surrounding Keir Starmer's comments and Baroness Carr's rebuke highlights the delicate balance between political power and judicial independence. While politicians have the right to critique policies and legal interpretations, direct criticism of court rulings in public forums raises serious concerns about the rule of law. Moving forward, it will be crucial for the government to demonstrate respect for the judiciary while also addressing public concerns about immigration policies. The legal system must remain independent to ensure fair and just outcomes for all individuals, regardless of political pressures. As the debate continues, it remains to be seen whether legislative changes will be introduced to close the so-called loophole that allowed the Palestinian family to remain in the UK. However, what is certain is that this episode has reignited discussions about the role of courts, the government's responsibilities, and the fundamental principles of democracy in the UK. So what do you guys think about this update? Let me know in the comment below. If you like my video, please press like button and subscribe for more. Hope I'll see you in next video.